Okay, good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of council to order Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, 6 p.m., Town Hall Council Chambers. This meeting is being broadcast on the Town of St. Mary's YouTube page. The Council for the Town of St. Mary's acknowledges with gratitude and respect that we are gathering on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people of the Longhouse, giving thanks for all creation. I'll begin this evening by asking for declarations of peculiar interest, starting with Councillor Craigmile.
None.
Councillor Edney.
None.
Councillor Luna.
None.
Councillor Lucas.
None.
Councillor Pridham.
None.
Councillor Alward.
Yes, with regards to item 7.4, the Kinsman request, I will be declaring conflict of interest, and I will just procure myself from discussion and the vote.
Okay, thank you. If you could just file with the clerk a written thing. Okay, thank you very much. And I have nothing to declare. So I will move on to item number 3, which is the agenda. Are there any additions or amendments to the agenda? There was a letter circulated with regards to the Kinsman. I had a discussion with the clerk and the CEO, and we want, just in order to get things moving along, and since we were talking about 14 Church tonight, we all decided that we would put it on the agenda this evening. There will be a lot of discussion in the future, and we have 2 members of the Kinsman Club that have graciously come out this evening if there are questions, actually. So that'll be something that, for an amendment. Is there anything else for the agenda? I'll seek a motion then that the March 10th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be accepted as amended. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Craigmile, second by Councillor Luna. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Public input period. And item number 4. Is anyone in the gallery that wants to speak or ask questions with regards to anything on the agenda this evening? Okay. I didn't receive anything by email. Just check with the clerk. Okay. Item number 5 is delegations. We have no delegations this evening. Item number 6 is acceptance of minutes. The minutes of February 24th, 2026 were printed in your package. Are there any errors, omissions, or problems with the minutes as presented? Okay, seeing nothing, I'll seek a motion that the February 24th, 2026 regular council meeting minutes be approved by council. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alward, second by Councillor Lucas. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item number 7 is correspondence. We have a few pieces of correspondence this evening. Item 7.1, as printed in your package, a letter from the Canadian Mental Health Association with regards to support for 14 Church. Any questions or comments with regards to this letter? Seeing none, I'll seek a motion that the correspondence from the Canadian Mental Health Association regarding a letter of support be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alward, second by Councillor Edney. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. 7.2, we also received a letter from the City of Stratford Social Services regarding 14 Church in support. Would anyone like to comment or any questions with regards to this correspondence? Seeing nothing, I'll seek a motion that the correspondence from the City of Stratford Social Services Department regarding a letter of support for the multi-generational hub be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham, seconder Councillor Craigmile. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. 7.3, with regards to a letter received from the Huron-Perth Public Health in support of 14 Church Street. Any questions or comments with regards to this piece of correspondence? Councillor Luna?
Thank you, Worship. I just think that all 3 of these letters show that we're on the right track with this location and the purpose of it. And I'm really glad to see that these 3 entities are in support of our project.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything further? Okay, then I'll seek a motion that correspondence from the Huron-Perth Public Health regarding a letter of support for social connection and public spaces be received. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham, second by Councillor Edney. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. 7.4 is a letter that was just circulated yesterday from the Kinsman Club of St. Mary's, and I say we have Mr. King and Mr. Van Galen here from the Kinsman Club. If there are any questions from council with regards to this correspondence, they've graciously agreed to answer any questions, and I guess in my discussions with the CEO is that they just wanted to get that out there in motion, because obviously these things take some time and his plans unfold. I don't want to speak for the Kinsmen, but from what I've been told is they want to be part of this project and they want to make it publicly known. So any questions for the gentlemen that are here this evening? Councillor Pridham.
Yes, I just had a quick read through, and it says that you want to like keep your memorabilia permanently displayed in a room. That would be a community room used for all types of different activities. I just wonder, I mean, if you're amenable to putting those things up while you use the room and then down for other occasions, as you would have probably a naming of the room anyway in your, with your generous offer of fundraising and donation.
Mr. Van Galen, do you mind? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Pridham. Certainly, we're very flexible in any approach that take with regards to the decoration in the room. The main concern for us is storage of the items. So some of them, you know, could be put into closets or whatever type of facility works. We don't have a lot, but there are some permanent items that we need to take care of on a regular basis that we want to have in one location.
Yeah, my feeling would be that if we, you know, did for one, then we would be maybe obligated to do for many groups, and the spaces that we have there could become quite, you know, taken up with a lot of displays rather than a nice, clean kind of look to it. So, and I really don't know what the look is going to be because the architect hasn't come back with anything, as you've described in your letter too. So, yeah, I'm wondering how, you know, flexible you are to the requests. So it sounds like you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we understand it's going to be a multi-purpose room, but we kind of want to be the lead on this and get you started and to make it a facility that we can make use of for our own needs.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Luna? Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. So I don't know, the motion, is it just to accept this letter for now and not, can I just ask? what
Yeah, so the motion
is?
is, the motion is just to refer it back to staff for report. So there'll be,
Okay,
there'll be all sorts of, we're not going to accept anything tonight. Mr. Kittmer, how do you see the process unfolding?
Yep. So I think as described in the letter, the Kinsman would like to start having discussions about a memorandum of understanding. So that would be our next step, is to begin negotiating that and bring back a draft for council to consider at some point in the future.
thank you for that, but I just think, as Councillor Pridham intimated, we don't know what this place is going to look like right now. We have really not much of I don't have much of an idea. So I don't know that we can commit to any kind of memorandum of understanding at this point, but I appreciate you wanting to go ahead with fundraising. I appreciate the efforts and all of that, but as far as what this building is going to look like, I don't know that we can commit further to anything at this point.
Yeah. So I think like there's two different steps here. So I think a memorandum of understanding is essentially committing ourselves to the fact that we want to talk about this and formalize a lease agreement at some point in the future when all details are finalized. But I think the memorandum would be, you know, kind of short and sweet, kind of hammer out some of the main concepts of the agreement, main concepts of our deal. That would give enough for the Kinsman to have the assurance that we'd be committed to allowing them to use the space, and then they could really start fundraising in earnest, with the understanding that, you know, the building in a best case scenario is operable in 2029, maybe early 2030. And then that final year before we open is when you would negotiate your final lease agreement with the club to make sure that they get what they want in the final details, we get what we want in the final details.
Councillor Edney?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not so much a question, but I just wanted to say that when I first read the letter, I'm always kind of hesitant when I hear the word sweat equity, but then I kind of gave myself a little historical, and I realized that we probably wouldn't have our train station up there if it wasn't for the bridge, and I could go on. So when you ask for sweat equity to be considered from this chair, it'll be considered. Thank you.
Just on that point, when we discussed it in our group, we also discussed not only, you know, just the average Joe putting in, you know, sweeping or whatever. We have some professional contractors in our group who may very well step up with some of the professional services that you're going to need throughout the project, not just in this room. And I think we'll try to make that effort to be available to the entire project across the board, because we really think that it's going to be a great addition to the community.
Thank you.
Councillor Craig Mao?
Thank you, Richard. So Don, I think it's really important to say that at these early stages of 14 Church Street, of fundraising or trying to do whatever, I think it's really important that we acknowledge the Kinsmen stepping up the plate. I think that's an important first step. And I think it also will help out the fundraising committee, as they can say, you know, we've got backing from Kinsmen, we've got backing from here. So I think it's all very positive. So my other real question when I read this, I realize it's really early, is that you mentioned that typically you might have your monthly meetings, maybe 10 of those a year, but you might need 50. And so I was wondering, if they happen to be smaller groups, could they go to other meeting rooms and not necessarily the large one?
So in our discussions as a committee, when we talked about that number, we had to envision every possibility for the next 50 years or 20 years. So we kind of threw out that number as our base. Currently, we typically get together as a whole group once or twice a month. And committees, you know, they'll go to the coffee shop or somebody's home. And if that works out better in the long run, then that's fine. We might not need to commit to 50. But I wanted you to be aware of what our needs could be in the future. Sure. And when you spoke about, and thank you for saying that it was important for Kinsmen to step up. When I first discussed it with your CAO, he said, impeccable timing. And I thought, great, that's exactly what we wanted to hear. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pridham?
Councillor Craig Mao had mentioned the fundraising committee, and so I'm not sure if this is channeling through the fundraising committee, because that's something associated with the library. So anyway, something to consider, because they're you know, looking to add to their total. Or if this is straight to the town. You see, I don't know how that would work best either.
What we envision doing is working with our usual fundraising efforts to raise the amount that we've committed to, and then simply write the check when the bills start happening.
No, I understand that the library fundraising committee is doing like this big check and presentations, and it might help them to promote their fundraising cause as well.
Be happy to do any public relations efforts with the library fundraising committee.
Thanks.
Okay, anything further? Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you need to add, or
No, thank you very much, and look forward to working on the project.
Okay, thank you both for attending this evening. We appreciate that. So the suggested motion, and I did fail to note that Councillor Alward did declare pecuniary interest in this one, so he recused himself. So the motion suggested from staff is that the correspondence from the St. Mary's Kinsmen Club regarding a letter of support be received and referred to staff for a report back about the request. So it is, to Councillor Luna's point, it is pretty broad. We're just at the initial stages. So is there someone willing to move that? Councillor Edney moves, their seconder. Councillor Luna. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion's carried.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 8.1. With regards to the capital campaign fundraising update, we have Sarah and Angela and Ms. Robinson Todd as well from the library board, and Friends of the Library, who's a very committed volunteer here as well as this evening to support them. So.
Good evening, Council. I'm back before you tonight as promised regarding the capital campaign fundraising to provide you with an update and to get your input on some naming requirements that the committee has asked for some input from you on so that we can move forward. As the Mayor mentioned, Angela Braham is with me. She's a member of our committee, as is Carol Robinson Todd. So I'm grateful they both could come tonight. Before you in the package was a report, both giving you an overview of one of the documents that our committee is using to provide information to potential donors about each space. And it's also providing you with a bit of an overview on where we're at with our capital campaign committee and some of the information we've been sharing out to the community, and our thought process on what we'd like to ask from you tonight, which is some input on naming opportunities. This is a bit tricky, we know, because financial times are hard, and some donors, we want everyone in town to feel like this project is for them and that they can contribute to it at any donor level. So our campaign is starting with the higher level potential donors and trying to make some strides and build some movement into the campaign. But over the next 3 years, we do anticipate having a variety of elements to this campaign, right down to readathons with children who are going to raise maybe $20 to contribute to the campaign. Those donors are equally as important to us because we want everyone to feel like 14 Church Street is their library and town space. But for now, we are focusing on the larger donors. And in our conversations with them, already they're identifying that they'd like a number idea for each of the different rooms that are available for naming opportunities. It helps them get a sense of whether they're in the game or whether they are a potential donor. And when the library committee had talked about it, we were thinking maybe ranges, but those are challenging. So what we did is collect a little bit of data for you that's in the report. On page 2 to 3 of my report, we talk a little bit about what the hospital's done around their naming opportunities for their campaign. And they provided us with some info there. Again, they were ranges, and they found their campaign to be quite successful. But the second thing we put forward for your consideration is a representation of this concept of the construction costs. And is there data there we can use that at some percentage is effective and communicates the value of those rooms to the community and really can help bring some fundraising to the table to ensure that we're meeting our costs. So I put before you in the report an option, and I present all of the rooms that have naming opportunities. And I mention in the report that the makerspace is already claimed, and that's with regard to the John Sipos and Mark Poulton donation in honor of Ben. So that's already covered. But the rest are still options. And we're trying to come in at a reasonable and significant contribution of donations to this project while not pricing this out of anyone's ability. So I put all of those thoughts on the table in front of you from the report. And as you can see, staff have made a recommendation after thinking long and hard about this, and we're recommending that council discuss tonight as an option, coming in at about the 75th percentile of what the construction costs are for each of those rooms. I will say, though, that we're very open to your input, so if even at that you think that the campaign is out of reach for even our large donors in town, we're really open to your input. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Questions, Councillor Edney?
Thank you, Worship. Looking at your chart, it occurred to me earlier that we don't have an end date on naming. You didn't put an end date in. So I think an end date is super important. Pretty much the value of the donation, because it's hard to say what the value is if it's just an endless whatever. But it occurred to me that if we did it in increments of 10, you could actually use the same chart, and I'm not sure if the same numbers will end up being there, but if you for 25% donation, you get 10 years, and so on, 20, 30, lifetime type of thing. Just a suggestion to consider for the committee.
In the research that we've done, there is often a 10-year to 20-year span for a donation, and we're really not encouraged to make a lifetime unless the amount is quite significant and far exceeds what the construction costs would be. And there's lots of reasons for that, because over time, donors disappear. There's increased costs from every 9 years or 15 years needing to do renovations. And so especially on a project like this where we're trying to keep it off the taxpayer as much as possible, I think it does us well to make that time frame a reasonable, balancing all the factors of getting a donation versus raising the cost and putting it too high out of reach for potential donors. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay, further question, Councilor Pridham?
Thank you, through your worship. 75% seems to be the one that's already pledged. It looks like it was around the 75%. That seems like a nice number to focus on. And if someone is thinking a smaller number but would still like to be included in a naming, have you done, you know, the 25, 25, and 25, so there's 3 names on a space? Absolutely. Yeah, or 4. Absolutely. If they do the...
So again, these are just for guides for the team as we're having conversations with the large donors to say, you know, this is what we feel the room value is that the donation should bring to the project. And if that's, you know, really high, is there would you be willing to share naming rights with another organization? There's lots of discussion that can be there for sure.
Councilor Craigmont?
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah, I can't give you any positive information because I don't think any one of us know what's going to happen until the team gets out there, and you're going to figure it out yourself, whether that should be 75, 50, or whatever that, you know, the team is going to figure out that once they get started, I believe. So I think the length of time was brought up here by one of my colleagues, but I do believe that because a lot of the things that are going in there, technology is changing rapidly, and what we might envision there in 5 years might only have a 5-year lifespan, and it'll get pivoted to something else. So I think we've got to be cautious on how long we think something will last there. For example, makerspace is extremely important today. Who knows what it'll be like in 10 years? You know, the sound room you may find that you need more sound room versus, so, you know, and none of us have a crystal ball to look in that future. So I think that window frame, I wouldn't worry about getting it too long. I guess those are my only comments, but I think, you know, what I see here is positive. You've done lots of homework, but I mean, you're going to figure it out as you get going.
Further questions? Councilor Pridham?
Thank you, through your worship. I would want it to be fair so that the percentages aren't adjusted from one to another unless, you know, down the road there, who knows, depending on how the fundraising goes. But yeah, just so that the donors are treated in a fair way with respect to their percentages.
Okay, further questions? Councilor Lucas?
Thank you, through the mayor. Sarah, are we looking at like an overall naming? Because we don't really have a name for the project. So are we looking for a headliner? I don't know. Is that the right word?
It's very possible that we may have a donor come forward and look for the naming rights outside like to the whole building. I think this individual room naming would still happen, and then there would be an external naming option, like the Sportsplex or the PRC kind of idea. We haven't come up with a number yet, but I think if we hit a number with a donor that exceeds this significantly, we could put that option on the table as long as council's comfortable with that.
Anything further? Sir, have the committee just so first I want to say that the amount of enthusiasm and the nature of the project, I think the fundraising committee has done a remarkable job and has a lot of enthusiasm and put a lot of thought into this. Has there been talk of a donor wall, or how would that work if someone, say, wanted to just donate a chunk of money in memory of someone, there would be a space for them to be recognized? Because that's something I've been asked.
I think that the concept of a donor wall or outside each room will definitely be present. We haven't quite finalized. We've been looking at examples all across Ontario and even out to BC, just to kind of get an idea of what we like. And if we can, we'd like to work in sort of an artistic element to it so that it's both attractive and recognition. So whether it will be for this purpose of naming opportunities in the building outside of each door so that every time you walk by you could be reminded who our very generous donors are in town, or whether it would be a wall where everyone would be on the wall, or whether it would be a mobile in the ceiling, or whether we're still kind of exploring options to see what could be attractive and unique and still, of course, pay honor to those donations because, yeah, we want it to be quite special and not expensive.
Anything further from council? Okay, thank you for your presentation this evening, and thank you for attending in support as well. The suggested motion is that library report, is a report LIB 02-2026 capital campaign fundraising update be received, and the council directs the library board to proceed with the fundraising rates for naming recognition options at around 75% of costs for the project, and that council endorse the fundraising for future and furniture and equipment as additional options for individuals or community businesses and service clubs to contribute to this project. Someone willing to move that motion? Councillor Alward moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lucas. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion's carried. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8.2 with regards to the Friendship Center and Blue Rink Roof Project. Mr. Lapointe is on the line, please.
Good evening, Council. Can you guys hear and see me okay?
We can't see you, we can hear you. There you are.
Okay, right on. There's two Rogers trucks that just showed up on my street about an hour ago, and I'll bet you it's related to how this goes. So we have a report in front of you for a procurement award for the replacement of the flat roof portion of the Friendship Center. And that is where all the mechanical equipment sits, above the kitchen and above the meeting rooms A, B, and C. We're not replacing the steel roof at this time. It's in good shape. It's been properly maintained. And then we are also carrying an allowance, which was already pre-planned prior to the issues we had over the Blue Rink this winter. We're going to do some major repairs to the metal seams. The metal itself is okay, but there's a seam that pretty much runs the length of the rink, and we're going to do some restoration to that. There's been many repairs done over the years. We're going to try to clean that up, and the engineer has specified a product that we can use that'll be a lot better. And then at the same time, we're going to evaluate everything that makes up the Blue Rink roof system, as far as can we better manage snow load on the roof without compromising weight distribution, etc., just to try to prevent issues from recurring in the past. So the winning proponent for the project was Grand Valley Roofing. We've not had them before, but they were the competitive price. So we're looking forward to getting started with them. And the schedule will get us doing this work in May and June before the summer heat, after the ice is out for the season. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. Doug, questions from council? Councillor Luna.
Thank you, Worship. Doug, what kind of disruption to the Friendship Center do you anticipate?
We don't anticipate any actual service disruption. We will work with Jenny Makita, obviously, as far as access to the building, making sure people are safe coming and going. There will be noises and smells and sights as part of regular roofing projects, but we'll keep that to a minimum and try to make sure that everything is still continuing to be business as usual.
And as far as the noises and smells, et cetera, how long do you anticipate that going on? Because, I mean, we've taken the pool away from people for over a year. We take a Friendship Center away from them for, months and months. It's not going to be good. So how long do you anticipate it's going to take?
Well, we're not going to be closing the Friendship Center during
No,
the
but-
project, but as far as the smell, it won't be maybe a week or two if there's rain delays. I can get a better timeline once we mobilize on site and meet with the contractor, and I can let everyone know kind of a date range.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Councillor Craig Mao?
Thank you, Worship. Doug, can you give us an update on the current status of that leak? Last time I looked, it didn't appear like there was any water at all going into the buckets, so.
Yeah, we've left everything in place in case, because we'd hate to have more disruptions. It has been dry. We've also had a couple days of significant rain. All the snow has melted from on the roof, so that's all taken care of. There was some leaking during the heavier rain that we had last week, and then it went away quite quickly. So we've left everything that's sort of there in case there's an issue, just so that we can we don't have to worry about it until the end of the year, and then we have more stuff on standby if there's a leak somewhere else.
And just to follow up to that, Doug, with the not knowing what's underneath the roof, is there a lot of insulation in there? I mean, it must be wet now by the seam, so will that all have to be taken out?
We did check the insulation when we were up there doing the fixes, and there is insulation on the roof, and it did get wet, but it has a tendency to dry out. So it's we may have to replace some sections that are not in great shape, but we'll look at all that as part of the project, and we'll replace what's necessary. When we were looking at it during the adventures of last month, there wasn't any real damage. It was just wet, so it dries up.
Okay, thank you. So my real question of your report now is from the Atlas Engineering, and I think you specified a product you want to be used to do the seam on the rock roof. And it almost seems like contractors not used to using that, but is going to get some training before they do it. Are we all good with that? Is it a fairly new product that a lot of people aren't using, or? As long as you're good with it, I'm good with it. It just struck me funny when I read it.
Yeah, that was included in the engineer's report. And what it comes down to is Grand Valley Roofing had a comparable project or a product that they had proposed that they're more familiar with. And the engineer said that's not what he wants to see. He specified something after some careful research. And the supplier of that product is willing to do on-site training with the contractor. So the actual product supplier can be on site to support that. They're all similar in nature, just the different applications. Some of them are kind of like an epoxy where you mix them together on site, spread it, and some of them are pre-packaged. It just depends on what it is. But the engineer was very adamant that that product be used, so they were willing to go through whatever training and certification necessary. They just hadn't received the certification, and that's required by the supplier. So they're going to go through that process before the project starts, and then the supplier will be around to advise during the project. I'm not concerned.
Okay, thanks, Doug.
No problem.
Further questions from council? Okay, thank you, Doug. So the suggested motion is that report DCS 07-2026 Friendship Center and Blue Rink Roof Project be received, and the council awards the roof project to Grand Valley Roofing and Coating for the tender price of $129,588, inclusive of taxes and contingencies. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alwood. Is there a seconder? Councillor Craigmile. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Next up, item 8.3, we have Joanna to give us a presentation with regards to some changes for the Sports Wall of Fame. Joanna, please.
Hello, can everyone hear me and see me okay?
Yep, we're all good.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Council. So the report in front of you is focused on the Sports Wall of Fame recognition program. First, we'd like to thank those of you who have been involved and supportive of the project. I think it's been a quite successful program in our first 2 years. The reason why this is coming before you at this time is twofold. The first is that the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee has done a thorough review reflecting back on the first 2 years of intake periods, the nominees that we've received, how we wish to improve the program and either expand or restrict the policy based on what we've learned and what we've noted from also best practices in neighboring municipalities or just other representations across the province. So I will just briefly summarize the highlighted changes, the topics that were discussed with the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee. Many are more procedural or just administrative clarifications that we wanted to improve. So one being nominee contact information. The first iteration of the recognition program, we found that the initial contact primarily occurred with the nominator, so whoever had submitted on behalf of a nominee. But then once the nominee had been successfully selected, that transition in communication was a little muddy in our first iteration. So we wanted to make sure that we revised the wording to accurately reflect that they would have some ownership as we approach the induction period. So that's the first. The second was the Pyramid Recreation Center display case. So we were very fortunate to have local contractor upgrade the display case in that main wall between entrance A and B at the PRC. And again, prior to the program formally starting, we couldn't effectively visualize what it would look like until we had inductees and memorabilia to share. The committee agrees that it's successful and that it really draws attention to the merit and achievements of the induction class of each annual season. So that was something we wanted to solidify as part of our procedures. The next is the digital display case that's beside the recognition display. And we wanted to consider how we would accurately reflect the annual induction class as well as those who were being archived as past inductees, because for our first year, we only had the one induction class. So there wasn't much need for archival thoughts at that time. We've been working with communications, particularly now that the town has transitioned to the new website host, and believe that this is something we can easily manage moving forward. So the recommendation being that we continue with 3 slides dedicated per inductee in their respective induction year, and then prior years be archived in an online gallery on the Town of St. Mary's webpage. So that is something we'll be working with communications to bring to life. I'm actually going to briefly skip over number 5 for right now because it ties more closely to the penultimate recommendation here. So the annual induction ceremony was our last procedural clarification. Again, without having an induction class, it was hard to imagine how many attendees we would have in any given year. But now that we've gone through 2 successful induction ceremonies, we've hosted both in the fall on a weekend day at the PRC and found that that was really successful in allowing a lot of people to attend, because often if the inductees work or if they live out of town or family members would like to attend, it gives a little bit more flexibility for scheduling. And it also allows the community users who are just in the building for regular activities, whether that be swimming or skating or anything else that might be going on, they can also join in the celebration. So this was more to finalize and formalize that process to state that we will continue with that process moving forward. Now I'll revert back to, this is where the more significant changes have been made to the policy that you may wish to discuss, or I'm happy to provide clarification on. So in the revision and expansion of eligibility criteria section, after the committee had those 2 rounds of intake periods, we found that some of the criteria was either a little confusing in the interpretation or may have been too restrictive or too broad. So we had a really thorough discussion. It was a productive session with Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee just a couple of weeks ago. And we found that a few grammatical changes or removal of a word helps to clarify that. So one of them was in the themes section and in the athlete section, the use of the word professional we found to be confusing, particularly because for some more specialized or niche activities, professionalism in that may not realistically be achievable for some, where they may have still brought great success and reflection on the town. So that was one of the changes. We also made some revisions to the builders category. We found that that was less easily described or understood by the public at large. So we added some language to make it a bit more of a robust description of what a builder may entail, because it's not as black and white or easily as understood as individual athletes or teams. So those are some of the phrases that have been revised. And the last significant change was adding a clause for removal of past inductees or for removing a nominee from consideration. So this was born from some discussion. I can give an example that doesn't directly tie to St. Mary's. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ryan Wedding, the Olympic snowboarder who I think he has since been caught to my knowledge, but was wanted and charged for criminal activity. So that might be an example of, he was an incredible athlete, brought fame to Canada, and surely his local community may have been in some sort of local recognition program. But then later activity brings to light some less desirable behavior that perhaps a municipal recognition program wouldn't want to highlight as a role model within the community. So that was just one. I think everyone can understand and appreciate that that would have been a good example of an athletic career that had its time to shine, but maybe shouldn't move forward in that respect. So with that in mind, and considering the general culture and political climate more broadly outside of St. Mary's and even Ontario, another example that came up when we were discussing it this time last year was Ryerson University was being renamed because of historical attachments with a person's behavior. So it was not necessarily born out of one specific individual or incident. It was trying to be future thoughtful of how we can allow the committee or council to make changes should the need arise, even though we don't currently anticipate that being an issue. So that, when you flip forward to the Sports Wall of Fame nomination policy attached after the report, you will note that that clause is listed at the end. So it's on page 48 in your council package. And that clause indicates the broad concept that we would hope that all past inductees or anyone being considered for induction would be reflective of the council code of conduct, general values of the town, and the beliefs of who should be a role model of sport in the community. So those are the highlights. Realize maybe went a little bit deeper than highlights, but if anyone has any questions or points of clarification, I'm happy to answer them or open the floor for discussion.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. Councilor Luna?
Thank you, Your Worship. Joanna, just for clarification, under the exclusion or removal clause, it does say that the committee can bring forward exclusion or removal recommendations to council, but what happens if that recommendation is wanting to be brought forward from council? Is that covered here? It's not clear to me that council could initiate that move.
Thank you, Councilor Luna, through the mayor. That's probably accurate that we may need to revise that wording. It was originally believed that as the committee would be the ones reviewing the nominations, they would be the first to have something brought to their attention, but you're correct. Certainly something could be brought forward directly to council, so it could be something that's shared both ways.
Yeah, I'd like to see stronger language giving council that right also, and how that would look on at the council table.
It may be covered under just 1 second, because they may be covered because it says all decisions related to the exclusion or removal are made by council. The way I read that reads that it's the council could initiate something. Okay. Councilor,
That's the decisions, if I may, that's the decisions that are for the removal made by council will be final, but that doesn't, to me, describe the process that council would do to bring forward a removal clause, a removal.
I guess that's fair, but, Councilor Albert was next.
I was just going to say, I believe Councilor Pridham wants to speak on this matter specifically. I have something else if you'd like to go first.
Councillor Allred was next.
All right, cheers. My question was with regards to the exclusion or removal clause. At the committee level, was there any discussion about some kind of like, not an appeals process, but somehow involving the party that would be removed in the discussion at that committee level or at council level? I was just curious as to what your thoughts were.
Councilor Pridham, would you like to speak before I respond on that as representative?
Sure. If that, is that?
You don't want, does that mean you don't want to answer the question?
No, I'm certainly happy to answer the question. I just noted that Councilor Pridham had raised her hand and.
Yeah, well, that's okay, but we have a process where it's one after the other. So if we would please respect the chair and have Councillor answer his question first, please, okay?
Yes, of course. The committee discussion did not initially consider an appeal process, and to my knowledge, was not something that had been brought forward in other comparable municipalities, but I also don't believe, to my knowledge, that this has occurred yet in any similar recognition programs that we are aware of.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pridham.
Oh, thank you, through your worship. Yes, I just wanted to point out that Council for the Town of St. Mary's within this clause has the right to deny and revoke inductions when necessary to protect the integrity of its values and reputation. So I believe the council has the right to do beyond what the committee may come forth with if they see some need for a removal.
Okay, is there anything further? I'll just defer to staff, just so we're clear on reasoning. Council can make a motion. It's their wall. They can make a motion to do whatever they want. The way I read this is that if council decided, respectfully, if Councillor Pridham made a motion to say, look, I have a problem with this, council would deal with it, right?
Yeah, through your worship, like I would view it as any issue that council brings forward. So we have a number of policies. Like many policies don't have like a thorough process of, you know, if you have an issue with this policy, this is how you bring it forward. I think it would just be part of your typical role. If a councillor became aware of like a transgression of an inductee that they were concerned about, you would likely find a way to put a notice of motion on an agenda and say, like, I'd like to have a closed session where we talk about a Sports Wall of Fame inductee, and then we would have that discussion in closed session at some point in time. Again, I take a very kind of wide view of, you know, council's bylaws and policies. I think they're yours. And I think that you as council always have the right to make amendments, exceptions, and bring things forward and ask for change if you wish.
Okay. Councillor Edney.
Thank you, Your Worship. Further to Councillor Allward's comments, is I think that it would be important and only fair to have an appeals process within this as well. That the individual could come forward to justify their behavior or make some kind of explanation. So I would put that forward to the committee, if not this year, perhaps in a future year, add that to the statement.
Okay, anything further? Councillor Craigmile?
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to say that, Joanna, I'm glad to see that you've made changes, because we didn't really know what we were getting into year one. Now you've got a couple years under your belt, so it's a living document. We're trying to make changes to advance the policy to make it work better. So I think it's all positive, and I'm sure there'll be more changes down the road. So I see it as very positive to get these things done.
Councillor Pridham?
And just one more thing, Your Worship. The committee, I believe, had a feeling that if there was something that was noted, that a two-layer process might be a good thing for council to consider, because you've got one vetting process and then another through council. Council has the right to do as they wish, of course, but that may the information or the relay of the information that someone is being removed may be more understanding if they had a thorough review.
Okay. My feeling is, as a first draft, I think it's pretty good. I mean, we're all hoping that we never have to go there. the reality is that it's better that there's something in print, and there may have to be revisions as we go along. There's a lot of different cases and a lot of walls of fame were not exclusionary. And I know the committee's done a lot of work on research and looking at other ones, so this definitely will evolve. I think it was important, and I know there was a lot of discussion, important that this is in there, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Anything further? Okay, so I'll put the motion on the floor then. Thank you for your presentation, Joanna. I'll put the motion on the floor that report DCS 08-2026 Sports Wall of Fame project update be received, and that council approves the recommendations put forward from the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee for the Sports Wall of Fame nomination application, and that council considers bylaw 09-2026 being a bylaw to adopt the Sports Wall of Fame recognition policy. So I'm going to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Lucas. Is there a seconder? Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Yeah. Moving on to item 8.4, the Town Hall Stair Rebuild Project. Mr. Kuzno is with us to explain. Mr. Kuzno?
Good evening, Mayor Strafty and Council. This project involves the rebuilding of the Church Street and Queen Street stairs at Town Hall. During this process, we will be removing the staircases, building a concrete sub staircase underneath to reinstall the stone veneer back onto the staircases. As you know, the staircases are getting worn out. The pointing is failing on both staircases and needs repairs. To help with this in the future, we're installing a heat cable system in the staircase and in the surrounding sidewalk panels so that we can reduce, if not eliminate, 90% of the salt and ice melter that is being used in the wintertime. We feel we know the ice melter and salt has contributed to the deterioration of the staircases. So we had a tender put out for this project. We had 10 different vendors submit for this project. 4 were disqualified due to issues with their submission package, and then after that we have settled on Everest Masonry Corporation for the tender price at $249,617. That's inclusive of taxes and contingencies. We're asking that we leave the remaining budget amount there so that if there are any issues during the project, we have the funds to deal with those. We don't foresee any issues, but we're dealing with over 100-year-old building. We never know what we're going to run into. If you have any questions, I'm willing to take them now.
Okay. Councillor Howard.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was just curious on timeline for this project.
The timeline for this project, we're looking to start after the Community Players Show. So that'll be May 11th. And the duration of the project, it should be completed end of July, first week of August is the goal.
Okay. Will there be some sort of signage kind of deferring the public during, say, events or something like that to the other staircase? Because I know there's events that'll go on during the summer using the upstairs auditorium.
So during this project, we will be directing staff or public to different doors. It'll also affect the capacity of the building. So a lot of the, we're trying to, if there's any programs or events scheduled during this time frame, we're trying to find alternate locations for them or move them to another date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything further questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation. So the staff recommendation is the report DEV 11-2026 Town Hall Stair Rebuild Project be received, and the council awards the Town Hall Stair Rebuild Project to Everest Masonry Corporation for the tender price of $249,617, inclusive of taxes and contingencies, and that subject to review and approval of the CEO, staff be authorized to fund unexpected expenses incurred during construction from the remaining balance of the 2026 approved budget of $480,000 for capital project 27 Town Hall Stair Rebuild Project. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Alwood. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lucas. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Moving on to item 8.5 with regards to parks, service delivery update and staffing. Mr. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to say for the record, Public Works had nothing to do with those stairs. Yeah. Sorry. So I just wanted to provide a report back on the current service delivery of the parks model. We had a few reports over the last few months. If you remember, we had three main contracts going back about 3 years. We had turf, beautification, watering. Presented a report there last fall when we tried to renew the turf contract. Came in with massive increases that we couldn't substantiate. So works to date, we started the staffing, implementing the staffing plan. We've transitioned the parks lead hand into a parks manager. Perennial flower bed conversions have been completed. So we're focusing our annuals on the cenotaph, the downtown, and the cemetery. We've also received the self-watering planters. So we are fortunate Canadian Supplier was low on that. So those are in stock and they're ready to be going to the greenhouse probably around the end of the month. We also have received 4 tree planters, self-watering. So that'll be a pilot project for 2026. I'm hoping that I can use those around patios and things like that if there's a remnant parking spot or something like that. So be a tree that kind of comes in and goes out. You see them in Montreal, they go 25 feet tall, that sort of thing. So that's kind of exciting. And then also starting last year, we took on the Baseball Hall of Fame turf maintenance. That went really well. We received no complaints about that. A couple accolades, it was good. In discussion with them for the 2026 and 2026 season, we're going to keep that up. So no changes there. And then we've been moving ahead with the fleet, the turf fleet procurement. That's been going really well. It's complete. We did go a little bit over the 165,000 that was allocated, but we were focused on new old stock equipment or equipment that had more than 80% life expectancy. I feel like we did really, really well on that for the costing, but as we anticipated, we thought there might be an early spring. So I'm really glad that we have that stuff on the ground, so we're ready to go. So that's great. That's working out well. So as I developed the original staffing plan, it was pretty quick last fall. It was just kind of throwing some numbers behind it. I did review the 2026 staffing plan with the parks manager, the newly minted parks manager. He and I identified an opportunity to potentially improve the service level in the parks department. And what we're asking for is potentially to tweak the delivery program or the staffing model in reduction of one of the seasonal positions and one of the longer term contract positions. And we'd like to bring on a 4th full-time parks laborer. We do believe, like after this winter, there is a bit of a gap in our winter service delivery. Right now we run a 4 a.m. to 8 or 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. service window. There's a bit of a facilities component later into the evening until about 7 p.m. We have the trains coming in this building. There's various board meetings going on. So we'd like to look at like an afternoon shift for parks. So that would be one of the big carrots that we're asking for. If council would accept the change in staffing, it would improve the workforce retention. We did take in a really good pool of applicants, so we feel there's probably 2 applicants in that last intake that we took. And then, we're going to build on institutional knowledge, and we'll have a bit of redundancy in the parks staffing, and we would have a direct service level improvement moving into next winter for an afternoon shift to just extend that service window to 7 p.m. So there's lots in the report. There's lots of numbers flying around. Don't want to make it too in-depth. The net cost beyond the budgetary would be $26,172. And that's largely centered around the benefits component of it.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Lucas.
Thanks for the mayor. Maybe not so much a question. I just, when I saw that, to me, it makes more sense. I think you're better off to have full-time if the work is there as opposed to a contract and seasonal. I think you end up with a lot of turnover in those roles. So again, from a dollars and cents standpoint, I think it makes sense. So yeah, I'm in support of that.
Okay, anything further? Councillor Craig Mao?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, after going through the report, I agree 100% with Councillor, with Dave there. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. It takes a lot of internal time administratively to just be constantly looking, and then it's always training. So I think it's a positive step.
Okay. Anything further from council? Yeah, I would echo the comments already made. To me, it just makes sense because it allows you that much more flexibility. And we all know, given the winter that we had, I'm sure you could have used an extra hand now and again, actually, you know. So I think everyone can relate to that. And this is a case where, you know, you can better deploy resources and have some flexibility. So to me, the report makes total sense. Yeah. Yep.
I was thinking about this on the way down. I did notice that the parks have already started the cleanup. It's funny, like if we would have went with this longer term contract model, if that was the thing, we wouldn't even have that person on staff yet. And they've already started the cleanup today. Like it's funny how fast we're flipping, right? We got a big mess out there to clean up. So yeah. Also not my fault.
Okay, anything further then from council? Okay, thank you for that report. So the suggested motion is that report PW 14-2026 Parks Service Delivery Update and Staffing be received, and the council approves the proposed changes to the park staffing model to add an additional full-time parks labor position, eliminate one proposed parks seasonal labor position, and eliminate the proposed 8-month contract seasonal parks labor position. Is someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Luna, second by Councillor Craig Mao. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion's carried. Okay, moving on to council reports then. We'll just go around the table as we traditionally do, and I'll defer to Councillor Craig Mao to start, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'll start with Blue Water Resources. There's not really, with the transition, everything seems to be running along pretty well. The last few weeks, they have had a shortage of drivers, but I think it's going to pick up in the next week or two. I believe the pricing per bin cost for the ICI should be given to the municipalities. JET hasn't received it now within the next couple of weeks, at least, you know, before the 1st of April. So I think that's good. Maybe I'll go to Upper Thames. Our last meeting was February 24th. The final budget was passed, and there really is not many changes from the draft budgets we've seen. However, the bottom line does look a little better because the dollars that they go out to get for certain things, they're very conservative, and they've already got more grants than what they had thought. So, I mean, it's getting close to a break even on that aspect of it, but that usually happens typically annually. The rest of the meeting was really about some awards, and there was one award given posthumously, and it was for a volunteer extraordinaire who kind of showed up to everything and just volunteered her time to help at, you know, whether it be children's festivals or this or whatever. And there was a Kyla Berger Stewardship Award, which goes to somebody in the, typically in the farming community that's doing something. And there was a couple there, and it was pretty interesting. There was, they've planted trees for approximately 50 years, and there's only 1 year they missed picking up trees at Tree Day at Upper Thames to go out and plant on their land. So that was kind of interesting. The meat of the Upper Thames really was this morning. Minister McCarthy gave a news conference at 10 o'clock. And he used all the buzzwords, although who knows what's going to happen. But, you know, whoever writes the reports know they talked about moving from 36 conservations down to 7. After today, it's going to be 9. But he used those words of the old system was fragmented. There was inconsistencies in pricing, policies, permits, etc. No transparency. So that's all right. So anyways, the big news that I got out of it anyways was there are going to be 9 regions instead of 7 that we heard about there a few months ago. And they're going to be more watershed based. So I think our regions actually got a little bit smaller, more centralized. They did mention something about no reduction in staffing levels, talk about keeping some local experience, and there'd be some sort of watershed councils. And I do believe that there was going to be the CAO and the chairs were meeting at noon, and then mayors and the CAOs from the conservations were meeting this afternoon. I don't know, Al, if you have anything, if you attended that 1 o'clock meeting and can add anything?
I did attend, and I think that I think the one thing that that came out is the changes are happening, and legislation is coming in the spring. So I think it's a little premature to really try and say what's happening. Like most things this government does, you know, once the legislation is there, we'll get it. But I think the big message from today is that the change is happening.
Yeah, I also got that too, where they're saying that, you know, in the next few months, you expect to see changes in the Conservation Act. You know, that will be so. So at PAC, there's been no meeting since their last, but there is a meeting scheduled for March 16th, and I hope we soon get a package about what's all in it. So I'm not reading it in the night before. The Lincolns, the season and regular season's over. Playoffs are starting. They finished up in 3rd place, about was 2 or 3 points out of 1st place. They're playing Strathroy in the 1st round. I'm not sure the schedule's been set for that yet, but probably playing this Friday night. Minor hockey, there's been a really good season. Their year end is March 31st. They're looking at a pretty much a break-even season, so that's fine. The Community Liaison Committee, we had a meeting last Friday. We went over the complaints, and there hasn't been very many. You know, there was no questions from the public brought up in advance. So they did some more, did a little information package on additives going into the cement. Really not talking going into the kiln for clinker, but what the additives are put in the powder later and what the impacts are and what the effects are depending on what it is you're building, whether it's strength or there's all kinds of different things. So that was informative and very interesting. So during the roundtable, we brought up about what everybody thought. I did bring up, I says, I don't know what's in your ECA to operate here, but do we need to have these meetings quarterly when we're not getting anybody there, any public input? Can we go to 3 times a year? And they were going to check on that because they had to go back and look at their ECA. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I've got to report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Craigmile? Okay, Councillor Edney, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Between seasonal maladies and vacations, I have very little to report. I do want to just, if everyone isn't aware already, Chief Skinner, after 4 decades with the OPP and the Stratford Police, announced his retirement a couple weeks ago, and I believe last Friday was his last day. So we all thank Chief Skinner for what he's done. And to Councillor Craigmile's point as well, these the CLC meetings are fantastic. They're incredibly informative. They're really good meetings. I've suggested a couple times that maybe they bring it to council and we do it, whether it's during our daytime meetings or whether it's evening. But they're great meetings, and I'm disappointed that more people from the public don't come out, because the great understanding we have of this industry that's built our community, you know, just being on the CLC board has been fantastic. So I hope people will hear this and maybe try to come out to the next one.
Okay, thank you. Anything for Councillor Edney? Okay, Councillor Luna, please.
Thank you, Worship. CPAC met in February, and Councillor Edney made the announcement about Chief Skinner. The committee has decided that we're going to review the committee in May and decide basically on the future of the committee whether it's now that the Stratford Police have been here for, what, 7, 8 years, I think, and seems to be working out well, whether we actually need an advisory committee for the police. My personal opinion is that we would be better served with a member of council or a member of the St. Mary's community on the Police Services Board. And I don't know if that's being looked at or how we go about that, but that would be, to me, a better way of participating in the police services. Spruce Lodge was canceled in February due to weather. We meet next Wednesday, I believe. Here in Perth Public Health is this Friday, and there was really nothing out of that meeting. And the Perth County Municipal Association met via Zoom, and that was our first meeting of the new Board of Directors, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Just for clarity, just with regards to the Police Services Board, that's ultimately what we wanted, but unfortunately, the Police Services Act doesn't make that very easy at the moment because there's provincial appointees, which captures the nature of that, and we tried to do that during the initial negotiations and weren't that successful. So, but it is something that we will continue. I know the CAO has advocated for that, and we will continue to look at that as part of the discussion. So, thank you for that. Anything further for Councillor Luna? Councillor Lucas?
Thank you, through the mayor. I also have a very kind of short report. PAC hasn't met, as Councillor Craigmile alluded to, and our Spruce Lodge meeting was canceled last month. We did have a Heritage Committee meeting last month, which we also have another one tomorrow night. Just voted in our chair and vice chair as part of our process. There was a heritage property that had been approved for a grant last year, but unfortunately we had run out of money. So they didn't complete the work last year, reapplied for the work to be done this year and received the grant funding. So again, it's good. I think it's good to see the community improvement fund being utilized as it is, and people taking care of their heritage properties. So that is all I have to report.
Okay, anything for Councillor Lucas? Okay, Councillor Pridham, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Library Board, we had a strategic planning development session facilitated by Alison Pylon from Ontario Library Services. And that was really, really good. She came with a bunch of questions and had all of us participating with our answers, and a written session as well, writing down our future thoughts for the next 4 years for the library. And she's going to come back with a report for us to help us work through that strategic plan. Yeah, so that was a really excellent thing that happened. She fit us in somehow. She's got a booked schedule for 2 months, but because she knows Sarah, she managed to fit us in for an evening, and that was really great. Recreation and Leisure, we had a really productive meeting, and you have received the information within the package on that. Chamber of Commerce has 6 new members in last month in February, and 162 Queen Street had the Business After 5, which I told you about. Taylor Shackleton's business had about 50 people coming in from all over, and they participated in the soup crawl. So I think it was really good for the BIA and really good for Taylor Shackleton at that new opportunity she's got there for hosting. I guess you can use her space, rent her space for whatever you choose to do. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything, questions for Councillor Pridham? Okay, Councillor Alward, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. I will make mention before I begin my report that the soup crawl was absolutely incredible. Thank you to everybody, not only who participated, but those who came out. Downtown was hopping. I couldn't believe it. I will say congratulations to Angela McPherson for being the soup champion this year. So she has got the spoon trophy now hung up in her business. So congratulations to her, and thank you to all who participated. We will be doing this again next year. So the BIA met March 9th, which was yesterday. We had a delegation from Sarah Andrews with the Capital Campaign Committee. It was more or less just to get across the donation opportunities, which we saw here tonight, and kind of relay that to the BIA, but also to state the importance of such a facility being downtown and the potential draws that we could see for local businesses. So that was excellent. We had a update on upcoming summer events from the Baseball Hall of Fame with Scott Crawford. Just to relay, June 20th is the induction weekend, with the Brews and Food Fest being that Sunday from Rotary. There are 6 tournaments in town this summer, 40 to 50 teams in town. 3 of those tournaments will be using Milt Dunnell Field, so there are significant opportunities for the BIA down there. They're also hoping to see some more kind of baseball in-town decorations, so the BIA will be considering that. I know our selfie station is going to get an overhaul with a baseball theme. Also, instead of the Waldo event this year, we will be doing a baseball-themed kind of scavenger hunt, so I look forward to seeing how they will dress me up for that event. Now, Hydrobox Art. So our next round of Hydrobox Art is coming to council for approval. That'll be at the next meeting, March 24th council. As well as there are more Edison string lights going downtown. I guess we got approval from Public Works corner to corner, so it should be more of that, which is excellent. We had a delegation from Community Living, and just to discuss job opportunities, potentially kind of with the BIA for folks with sort of intellectual barriers or kind of social barriers, with things like handing out flyers, watering plants, sort of odd jobs, that sort of thing. So we've struck up a committee, which I will be participating in, to help kind of facilitate that for Community Living, which is excellent. And beyond that, our next meeting will be the AGM, and that will be held at the newly opened Purstone, just downtown. So beyond that, I have nothing else to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Alward? Okay, seeing nothing, I'll put a motion on the floor then that the committee and board minutes listed under agenda items 9.1 to 9.17 be received, and that the verbal updates provided by council representatives on these committee and board meetings be received. So I'm willing to move that motion. Moved by Councillor Craig Miles, or seconder? Councillor Lucas. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to item number 10, I have nothing under emergent or unfinished business. I have nothing under notices of motion, which leads to bylaw. Item 12.1, the suggested motion of bylaw 09-2026 being a bylaw to adopt the Sports Wall of Fame recognition policy be approved by council. Is someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Pridham, or seconder, Councillor Luna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item number 13, upcoming meetings. March 17th is Strategic Priorities Committee. March 24th is regular council. Are there any other community meetings anyone wants to mention for the good of the community? Okay, seeing nothing, then we'll move on to our confirmation bylaw, item number 14. The suggested motion is that bylaw 10-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this meeting, be approved by council. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Edney, seconded by Councillor Pridham. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Item number 15 is adjournment. The suggested motion is this meeting be adjourned at 7:18 p.m. Someone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Lucas, second by Councillor Luna. All in favor?